The Necromancy mod is just about the closest you can get to what I personally want the vampire counts to be. Almost every unit type you go up against can be raised to fight in your ranks, complete with a brand new skeletal style. But how exactly does all of this work? Let's take a look and find out right after I tell you how you can get some cheap games with Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming offers game keys for all your favorite stores and platforms at heavily discounted prices. If you want to check out Manlords, 49% off. Excited to play Ghost of Tsushima on PC? 23% off. Hell, you want to get Warhammer 3 now it's back on the road to being good? Why not grab the trilogy for 86% off if they have stock? Whatever you want to play, they probably have it cheaper than you can get it anywhere else, so check them out at the link in the description and save yourself some cash next time you feel like fattening up the backlog. With a 4.7 out of 5 on Trustpilot and 24/7 customer service, you know you're in good hands and can grab games worry-free. One more time, check them out at the link in the description, and thank you to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. Once you've installed the mod, which is quite literally as easy as subscribing to it in the workshop and enabling it in the launcher, you can boot up a campaign as any of the Tomb Kings, Vampire Count, or Vampire Coast, and you'll be met with this new UI element along the top bar. This will show you how many bones you have at your disposal, which is the currency used to recruit most of these new units. There's also a handful of new additions to the rosters, which can be recruited normally, but I don't think you need me to tell you that you need to build their buildings to use them, so we'll skip over that for now. In this new UI, not all bones are created equal, so you're going to need to collect specific bones to recruit specific units. Hovering over this UI element at the top will show you just how many different types of bones and weapons there are, and honestly, it can be pretty overwhelming when you're just getting started, but the way it all works is extremely simple. Let's say you battle against a Skaven army, and in that battle you kill, say, 10 of their units. You will then receive 10 lots of Skaven corpses, which can then be used to raise skeletal versions of Skaven units. And weapons work just the same. Let's say 5 of those Skaven had slings. You'll then be able to summon 5 Skaven units with slings. It really is just as simple as you can raise most of the unit types you go up against, so just keep beating enemy armies and checking the recruit menu regularly to see what's available. If you want something in particular, you can hover over the percentage tooltip and it'll tell you what you have to do to be able to recruit that unit. Most of the time this is battling the fleshy version of that unit, but sometimes you can also make use of the new Dig for Skeletons movement stance, which will provide you with different kinds of bones depending on the location it's used. The only limit on how many of these units you can recruit is how many bones you have, so theoretically you could have full skeleton armies for the entire game once you get on a roll. These bones are also faction wide, so you don't need to worry about going somewhere specific to recruit. As long as your army is alive, you can get more skellies, no problem. Just like Raising the Dead, all of this recruitment is also instant, so you don't need to worry about sitting recruiting for a bunch of turns. Is all of this balanced? Probably not, but I sure think it's a lot of fun. Recruitment cost can vary wildly, with the base cost being about right for the units they're copying, but most of the time they're way higher or literally zero. According to the mod author who responded to my comment, this is supposed to scale with Lord levels, so the higher the level, the more affordable late game units become. However, this may be bugged right now since units shouldn't be available for free, but to be fair to them, the DLC only came out a couple of weeks ago at the time of recording, so it might not have been patched or something in the DLC broke it, let's be honest. As for the units, I'm not going to go through every single one since most of them are very similar to the units they're based on from their home factions. Plus there's like 60 of them, and this video would be 30 minutes long with me just saying, and this unit is based on this other unit and has some stat differences but can still be used mostly the same. I will, however, go through the totally unique units added, then show each unit up close and personal with their stat card compared to the base unit, so you know what to expect in battle. So first up we have the Wheel Skeleton Spearman, and this is one of the most bizarre units I've ever seen. Out of the box, they're a much smaller unit-sized spear unit with worse leadership and much more defense than the basic Skeleton Spearman. However, after 30 seconds in battle, they can choose to don the wheel, which makes them into an entirely different unit. They drop half of their defense to gain a ton of speed, attack, and piercing damage and charge bonus, but by far the most overpowered change is to their mass. Pre-getting on the wheels, they have about 90, which is pretty much in line for an infantry unit like them. Once they get on the wheels, however, they have 800, which is about as much as a squig herd. This makes them stupidly overpowered when used to cycle charge, as basically nothing can stand up to them, so they plow straight through with their high speed and tiny hitbox. Side note, the animations are also hilarious since they're essentially soft T-posing inside the wheels rolling around. In my opinion, you should always have them on the wheel, since their charge is just so crazily overpowered and they're so easy to blast through enemies like a knife through hot butter. Next we have the Death Wraith. This is another extremely bizarre unit, but sadly, no wheels this time, just wings. It's essentially a hero unit since it's a single entity but packs a massive punch with one of the strangest stat cards you'll ever see. So, 0 armor and 55% physical resistance, which is pretty standard for an ethereal unit, but 0 defense is a bit of a red flag. Every hit that comes its way, it's going to feel, and even if it's not magical damage, it'll be in trouble fast against anything that does any reasonable amounts of damage. Against magic, it's going to fold like me sorting laundry, way too fast without doing anything effective. However, if you can ignore that, it's not so bad. 92 speed is blazing, and flying around means it can fight whatever and wherever it wants. 65 melee attack is also nothing to scoff at. With magical, armor piercing, and a bonus versus large, it can dish out some serious punishment, provided literally nothing comes back towards it. Lastly, it also has a bound use of Soul Stealer for a little bit of extra damage and healing. I'm really not sure how I'd use this unit since it feels incredible in the damage department and can really dish it out, but the amount it takes in return just makes it insanely risky, especially once you consider how much magical damage is out there these days. Just pick some key non-magical targets for it to take on and keep it nearby to allies so it doesn't get surrounded. Even against weaker troops, 0 defense catches up quick, so the less hits it has to take, the better. Next we have Skeleton Crushers, and these are quite similar to the Black Coach, but now it's a set of 3 entities instead of just the 1. This comes with more leadership, speed, and attack, but a little bit less defense and armor piercing damage, making it a better choice in the mid game. Still, they're for sure charging powerhouses that only get better once they rack up enough kills to activate their Black Scythes. Use them to cycle charge, making sure to pull them out the moment their charge is finished to maximize their damage whilst also keeping them safe from too much melee pressure. Focus on less armored infantry since their damage will not be able to punch through the more armored troops, and use their insanely high speed to attack from the backs and sides of combat to maximize their impact. Front lines are a great choice, but ranged infantry will also work just as well. As long as you prioritize keeping them on the move in and out of enemies, you'll be onto a winner. We also have the Bone Horrors. These are much more of a standard unit and are really just a vegetarian version of the Crypt Horrors. They have less health, but aside from that, its increases do everything but weapon strength, which gets a little bit less armor piercing, but also a bonus versus large. Honestly, a unit like this would be a great addition to base game since vampire counts have so little anti-large damage in the roster. They can function mostly the same as Crypt Horrors, but work a lot better focusing large targets like monsters on the front lines or any cav in the enemy army. Despite the health reduction, they last a lot longer in melee with an extra 10 defense, so as long as you have them fighting, you can't really go wrong. Plus, with their Vigor Mortis ability, they'll be buffing the stats of nearby allies, making everything more effective, as well as their own damage. And finally, we have the Chrysopelea. I'm really not sure how I'm supposed to pronounce this, please help me. This acts very much like a legendary dragon from Cathay. Compared to Yuan Bo, who it steals most of its moveset from, it obviously has a lot less armor, as well as reductions to leadership, attack, and weapon strength. That said, it's still a devastating threat in combat. It has strong melee stats, respectable armor-piercing anti-infantry damage, making it great in the front lines versus swarms of infantry, so long as they don't throw too much damage back. 55 resistance is all well and good, but once magic hits the scene, this thing will go down fast, so keep it out of the way of anything that can do that. Other than that, as long as you keep it nearby to other units, you should have a great time. Front lines and back lines are all on the table with speed and damage like that. Now onto units pulled from other factions. I'll also put on screen the tooltips of what you have to beat to be able to recruit them, and some of these can technically come from multiple factions, but in the interest of some sort of coherency, I'm going to sort them into their home factions based on what faction they're most known to come from. So first up, from the Beastmen, we have the Skeleton Manscore, the Skeleton Wolf Creatures, and the Skeleton Giant. From Bretonia, we have the Black Sky Knights, and the Skeleton Griffin. From the Chaos Dwarves, we have the Skeleton Taurus. From the Chaos Warriors, we have Skeleton Marauders, Skeleton Dragon Ogres, and Skeleton Dragon Ogre Shagoths. From the Dark Elves, we have Skeleton Dark Elves, and the Skeleton Hydra. From the Dwarves, we have Skeleton Dwarves, and Great Weapons Skeleton Dwarves. From the Empire, we have Skeleton Demogryph Knights. From Grand Cathay, Skeleton Eastern Dragon. From the Greenskins, Skeleton Goblins, Skeleton Orcs, Skeleton Goblin Archers, Skeleton Trolls, and Great Weapons Skeleton Trolls. From the High Elves, we have Skeleton High Elves, Skeleton Great Eagles, Skeleton Carnivores, and the Skeleton Dragon. From the Lizard Men, we have Skeleton Skinks, Skeleton Saurus, Skeleton Cold Ones, Skeleton Croxigors, Skeleton Profane Croxigors, Skeleton Dreadsaurians, Skeleton Coatls, and Skeleton Carnosaurs. I'm getting real sick of saying the word skeleton. From Norska, we have the Marauder Bone Collector and the Mammoth. From Ogres, we have Ogres. From the Skaven, we have Spear Skaven, Sword and Shield Skaven, Dual Weapons Skaven, Skeleton Runners, Skeleton Skaven Slingers, I'm just going to mix it up, Skeleton Brood Horrors, Rat Ogres, and Hell Pit Abomination Skeletons. And lastly, from the Wood Elves, we have Skeleton Wood Elves and White Hawk Riders. Overall, I think this mod is great. It's very simple to install and get playing with, and the way you collect bones is extremely straightforward and works really well at turning the remains of your enemies against them. As far as balance is concerned, in my opinion, it is incredibly overpowered. This combined with the raised dead mechanics means you're never short on units to instantly summon into existence, so you'll never be left waiting to recruit units unless you want something in particular. In battle, some of the units are balanced okay, being weaker versions of the units they're harvested from, but others are just broken. Don't get me wrong, this is a really fun mod and absolutely shouldn't worry too much about the balance, but if this was to be made into a fully fledged DLC mechanic, I think it needs some tuning. Still, as far as steaming is concerned, this is about as close as you can get to my ideal version of the vampire count. I don't care about lore, raising the bones of my enemies and using that against them as I conquer the world is all I want when I'm playing as a Lord of the Undead. All the models here look great, even if some of them take some creative liberties with bone structure. If you're an Undead fan like me and want some new mechanics, I highly recommend you check out this mod. And that's everything I have for this mod review / spotlight / guide video. I'm still not entirely sure what to call it. Let me know what you thought of this video and any other mods apart from that one that you'd like me to check out in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and if you want more Warhammer 3 content, then how about this video, reviewing the latest DLC, Thrones of Decay.